Kia ora everybody, good morning and welcome to this community research webinar. A framework for Indigenous Evaluation with Nan Wehipeihana, Dr. Chelsea Grootwald, me Jan Hind and Kay Marie Dunn.
Kia ora tātou. Thank you, Jan, for graciously welcoming us all into this stunning webinar. My name is Kay Marie Dunn, he uri ahau no te taitokerau I te tahao tōku pāpā, no te hokianga nui ākupe, no pangaru, no te hekatū me o māpere. I te tahao tōku māma he uri ahau no te tairāwhiti, ara no Muriwai, no ngai tā manuhiri, no ngai te rangi koianake, me Ngāti mahanga. Mai taku ngākau ki a koutou katoa, he mihi maioha, he mihi aroha ki a koutou. Ki a kōrua Nan, me koe e te tuahine Chelsea, nau mai whakatau mai. Ki a koutou no ngā haue whā, no ngā tōpito o te ao, nau mai, haere mai, piki mai. It's beautiful to have you here. My name is Kay Marie, my very first webinar with the team, and I look forward to co-hosting with Jan and helping to bring some thoughts and some whakaaro to this kaupapa. Kia ora tātou. And so from here, what I would like to do is I'd love to open the floor for our very first presenter for the day, and that is Nan Wehipeihana. Anei te rākau ki a koe e Nan.
Tēnā koutou katoa. My name's Nan Wehipeihana and I'm based in Wellington, New Zealand. On my mother's side, my tribal affiliations are to Ngāti Porou and to Whānau-ā-Apanui on the east coast of the North Island. And on my dad's side, to Ngāti Tukorehe, Ngāti Raukawa, just north of Wellington. I'm an evaluator. What I do, it's what I'm passionate about. I'm an independent evaluator and a member of the Connect group. And I've been doing evaluation and research for more than 20 years. And it's I'm motivated through evaluation that makes a positive difference for Māori. I've been deeply influenced by my parents and an ethic of service evident in their lifetime commitment to whānau, extended family, to marae, our traditional gathering places, to iwi, our tribes, and to the community, and to the well-being of Māori as a people. For me, part of what it means to be Māori, to be a Māori evaluator, is an ethic of service. A responsibility to use my skills, my talents, to contribute to my whānau, my extended family, my iwi, my tribe, and to Māori. Next slide, please, guys. I'm upfront about my personal and professional values. And I don't hide my values behind the elegance of my evaluation design, the beauty of my evaluative criteria, or the sophistication of my method. In my practice, I support and advocate for evaluation that is culturally grounded and affirming of Māori values and perspectives. For me, it's about providing an understanding of what it means to be Māori, as well as surfacing Māori aspirations. And it's also about the potential to influence policy, programs and development, so that Māori views, Māori perspectives and interests are elevated and given a voice to and influence decision making. Next slide, please, David. I seek to use the tools in the discipline of evaluation to protect policies, programs and services with respect to Māori, and to contribute to a more just, equitable and inclusive society. So my conception of evaluation seeks the meaningful inclusion of Māori in determining what matters for them and what matters in their lives, and therefore in determining, designing and doing evaluation. Next slide, please. Evaluation is values-based. Irrespective of whether we whisper or shout out loud our personal values and principles, They influence what we do, how we see the world, what we privilege, what we prioritise, what we see as normal, what we see as different. Evaluation is an exercise of power. It determines our evaluation design, the evaluative criteria we select, the methods we use, who we include, and who we exclude. Next slide, please, David. So evaluation is not power neutral. Ethical, responsive, transformative, empowerment, collaborative evaluation, and whatever label you ascribe to your evaluation practice, demands that you share power with Māori. So we need to think of ways to share power in determining, designing, and doing evaluation. But how do we get there? Well, for me, it's fundamentally a paradigm shift. It's about how you see the world. And the challenge is you have to want to see it differently. You have to have a reason to see it differently and see the world differently through alternate eyes. And you have to have a reason to power back or depower those eyes. Next slide, please, David. So what we have here is a map, and I just call it locating power and evaluation. And the map helps you think about the locus of power. On the left-hand side of the map, you've got the axis which is called Western imposed, and it's kind of, you decide. And on the right-hand side of the map, you've got Indigenous self-determination, or Indigenous or Māori survive. And then as you see from the bottom up, you've got some steps, really. And the first one is 2, evaluation done to, evaluation done for, evaluation done with, evaluation done by, evaluation done as Māori. So 2 really is evaluation done to, well, it is what it says. We're doing it to you, we're the experts, we know what you need, and really it's kind of blind ignorance to the power and control issues. And in this space, worldviews dominate. So evaluation done for, well, we're doing it for you. We know there's a problem, we've got good intentions, but essentially it's benevolent colonialism. Again, the Western world prevails, Western worldview prevails. And evaluation done with is a space, I think, that we're trying to at least to get to. And it's the beginning of different ways of thinking, and the beginning of sharing, of power sharing, culture responsive, respectful partnership. But width's a continuum. To the left of width, it's really still largely about, Western non-Indigenous still in control. And to the right of the width, it's really that stepping stone towards a much more inclusive role, a much more supportive role for Māori and Indigenous evaluators. So evaluation done by Māori really is where Indigenous evaluators lead, where their cultural values and principles prevail. There's still some accommodation of Western approaches, but it's a good space, well, at least for Māori. Evaluation done as, really, I suppose that's the pinnacle for many of us who are Māori. It's where Indigenous evaluation, where we lead, where our worldviews are the norms, where Māori frameworks and methods prevail, where in fact what we do and how we operate is seen as credible. We don't have to explain ourselves to anybody else. And our worldviews, our knowledge, and our ways of working dominate. So sharing power and evaluation really, for me, starts at the with and this aspirationally moves towards by and as. Next slide, please, David. So I think what we want to think about is how would you share power when deciding to do an evaluation, when designing an evaluation, and when doing an evaluation. And we can come back to that, I think, but those are 3 things that we might want to think about.
Oh, tēnā koe, Nan. Firstly, thank you very much for giving an insight into your why. What is it that in a place, who is it that you serve? So you talked about your whānau community, hapu iwi. You spoke about the importance of being culturally grounded and being values-based. And one of the most powerful pieces of your kōrero is about the power and the nexus of power that sits within evaluation. So that in itself is quite an interesting perspective when we think about evaluation generally, and then we think about evaluation from an Indigenous lens. So thank you very much for presenting these whakaaro for us all to think about and explore more deeply within ourselves as practitioners and also as organisations in the community. So we've got some questions that have been flying at us from many people in the social media space. And one of the questions that has been posed by R Flower is, what evaluation models have been used successfully with tangata whenua?
Well, I think many evaluation models can be used, but probably those that that spring to mind are really kaupapa Māori as a first and foremost, but also empowerment evaluation has some synergies, collaborative, but also kind of developmental evaluation where you are engaging in small cycles and going back to communities and engaging them as you go along. So those are the ones that definitely just spring to mind immediately. But it's not always about the model. Sometimes we don't always have a lot of choice about the model, and we kind of, we might be the imposed evaluator when we think of it.
When you reflect on power and coming back to it, moving from this side of the continuum to this side of the continuum, where here Indigenous peoples tend to be those that are researched and those that are needing to be saved or to be analysed, to a more partnership practice where we're designing or co-creating together. What do you see as the core challenges in enabling communities to be able to come to this side of the continuum rather than stay over here?
Well, I think if we're talking about communities, first of all, there needs to be space. 1, they need to be asked. 2, they need to be invited. 3, they need to be engaged in a way that is respectful, meaningful, safe. Not always are they asked. And I think the critical thing when engaging communities is we are the evaluation experts, they are the community experts. So too often we see ourselves as the expert, and we bring skills, definitely, but also Māori and communities, they bring deep knowledge about their communities. They bring expert knowledge about how to connect and who to connect with, and they also have experience to guide us in our engagement.
So, Nan, some of the challenges that you might face when you are having to tell a story to funders or those that have engaged you as an evaluator, and when you're having to translate or interpret that community experience and enable that to fit with another's understanding or other's paradigm, what are some of the challenges that you face and how have you gotten through that?
That is the interminable challenge that you face as a Māori or an Indigenous evaluator about how you listen and give voice to the views and perspectives that have been shared with you, and how you translate that into a policy space, a funding space, while retaining the integrity of the kōrero, but also creating or seeding understanding. Sometimes we do that well, and sometimes we don't quite hit the mark because our funder look back at us and they're confused. So it's not always easy, and it is a fine balance, and it's a two-way conversation. So it's about communities speaking into the policy space, but policies and funders speaking into the community space. And that doesn't always, they can't hear what's being said. It's not that they're not listening, but they can't hear what's being said because the frame of reference, the language that we use, for example, as evaluators, we use a lot of technical jargon, and there's not always a need for it. So that is definitely challenging. I've found it useful to actually just ask asked by the community and the whānau, do you get it? And ask them to explain back to me so that we can have a dialogue which helps to unpack, because some of the concepts can be, incredibly deep and incredibly challenging to actually transfer from one setting to another.
Thank you, Kay Marie. Thank you, Nan. Thank you for your vision for evaluation, because it really is a vision that you presented to us. It feels like, I know we keep hearing words like cultural paradigms, but it's like you gave us the light bulb moment of the difference between for and by and at. So now I'm going to ask you a really dumb question now. Here's a dumb question. How do we know when we're getting that right, Nan? What does that look and feel like? What's happening around us to confirm that we're not just by, but we're for, or even the evaluation or our work is as Māori? What's going on to confirm that we're getting it right?
Well, I think the first thing is that we're not, when we move into another cultural space, the cues that we knowingly normally inform us don't work. Or they don't work as well, or they get confused. So we have to ask, and that can be scary, that can be challenging because we do it with a good heart, but actually sometimes on the other side we just get Porou explaining to me. First of all, there's a sense of humility about, what is it that I do? And there's a sense of, I always say, we need to put our ears on. And what I mean by that, don't bother asking if you don't want to hear what gets shared and to act on it. So, and that is challenging and difficult. I think a key role for non-Māori and non-Indigenous is to take a stance in their world. So that is to, and what I mean by that is to say, this is not good enough. I think we should do something different. I think we might get greater insights if we engage differently with Māori communities. So it's about taking a stance around what, dare I say, good evaluation engagement might look like. So there's kind of two things. One is about obviously seeking help and having the ears on, but also advocating for the right of Māori to have a meaningful role in design, determining and analysing in the whole spectrum of evaluation, because too often we also just get this piecemeal slice. You ask us at the beginning and maybe you come back and ask us at the end, and that's just not respectful.
And we'll be hearing shortly from Chelsea about some practical examples as how it looks when we get it right, when we're working with our good relations with Māori. Nan, thank you. Keep our ears open. Keep our ears open. Be prepared for the discomfort. An attitude, a particular attitude and a frame of mind, which means that we are prepared to reframe our expectations of ourselves in the process. Well, keeping my ears open now, and I'm delighted to introduce Dr. Chelsea Grootwald. And she's going to talk to us today about some practical examples of what sharing power might look like in practice. Simple examples of how you might engage with Māori effectively. So kia ora, Chelsea.
Tēnā koutou, kia ora koutou, huri no I te motu. I te tuatahi e tika ana ki te tuku mihi kia koe e te tuahine Kay Marie, nau e whakatuwhira tā tātou nei hui, kei te mihi kia koe hoki e Jen, nei rā ku mihi mai oha. Ko ai ahau, he uri ahau no Ngāti Porou, no Ngāti, no te Whānau-ā-Apanui, te whakatōhia me te arawa waka. Oi! Tēnā tātou katoa. Good morning, everyone. It's a privilege and a pleasure to be part of this webinar today, and also to present alongside a good friend, mentor and role model of mine, Nan Wehipeihana. So I will try not to duplicate or what Nan has said, but suffice to say we do share the same vision for creating and building Indigenous evaluation, and in particular kaupapa Māori evaluation evaluation, Mātauranga Māori evaluation, where we are doing evaluation as Māori. So I'd just like to say a mihi to Nan. Really, there's three key things I want to talk about today. And the first point is around, Nan touched on this, ko ai aho, ko ai koe. So that's locating yourself as an evaluator. What is it you bring to this evaluation practice and this evaluation research? Secondly, I've got a very simple framework that might help you to look at how you engage with Māori effectively. And third, I just want to talk about some practice-based examples of how getting it right or engaging with Māori effectively, what that looks like when you're actually doing evaluation. Next slide, please. So ko ai aho. So in my mihi, I told you where I was from, my tribal affiliations, and from that, you know, that's about who I am, where I'm from, and these are the things that are important to me. They shape my worldview, they position me, and as evaluators, and particularly Indigenous evaluators, these all have a bearing on how we practice, how we think, how we view the world, how we design, how we privilege, how we prioritise, as Nan said. So for me, like Nan, I'm passionate about evaluation. I enjoy working with whānau, hapu, iwi and communities to look at how evaluation can make a difference for them. So as Nan said, it is about servant leadership, it is about a service, an ethic of service. And for my part, when I graduated with my doctorate, I purposefully did not pursue a career in academia simply because I wanted control of my research agenda. I wanted to choose my own priorities and what I looked at in research and evaluation. So me contracting for myself and my business is part of that journey of doing evaluation for and as Māori, and me having power and control over the research agenda. So the second point I want to talk about is this framework for engaging effectively with Māori. Next slide, please. So this is a framework that was developed by Atawhai Tupo. Some of you may know him, and he developed this for Treasury staff who were keen to understand, you know, how do we do this? How do we connect with Māori? How do we engage with them? So he calls this framework the 5 whys, and for me, and for many of you, these are probably things or questions you think of inherently. They're just what you do, part of your unconscious practice. But I think what this framework does is it just simply presents it in a nice, easy way for you to think about key things that can help improve how you connect with Māori. So the first why, nā wai. So who set up the hui and why? Nā wai te hui I karanga. And that helps you frame your purpose and in regards to evaluation. So who's funding the evaluation? What's it for and why? Mō wai. So mō wai te hui, what are the benefits for Māori, for whānau, for community? And I think from the get-go, if you cannot articulate what those are, then there should be red lights, you know, flashing in your head. If you cannot see a benefit for those communities, then, you know, really you have to ask yourself, what is the purpose of this and why am I doing this? And do I want to put myself in that space? Me wai, the third why, who do you need to see? It's really important to identify when you're working with Māori, whoever communities, who exactly do you need to see, and make sure you're seeing the right people. So that comes down to talking with the funder, talking to people you might know in those communities, and being very clear that you are talking to the right people. You don't want to, for example, set up a hui at one marae and realise that actually you should be talking to the whānau 2 marae down the road. So it's really important that you pinpoint the exact people you need to see. Ko wai, so ko wai kei te hono, who is the key connector in the community you're working with or whānau? So Again, that's about doing your homework and trying to identify. Every community has them, every whānau has them, every iwi has them. Those people who will hook you up and hook you into the people you need to speak to. So identifying those people is critical. And he wai, as in he waiata, do I know my marae 101? And I'll explain a bit more in the examples what I mean by that. But essentially, the marae 101 is, are you equipped to be safe in Māori spaces? Do you know a karakia? Do you have a simple waiata? Do you know your mihi, your pepeha? All of these things, I think, today are not nice to haves, but must haves. These are the non-negotiables when you're engaging with Māori. Next slide, please. So some practice-based examples. So in terms of mōwai, what is the benefit for Māori? Nan touched on this a bit earlier when she spoke about the challenges we face when translating whānau outcomes or whānau aspirations to funders. And one example I have is a recent evaluation. I worked on a team and we worked with a funder who had funded a community garden up north. So we went along to visit the whānau who was leading this initiative. The garden wasn't looking too flash, but what they spoke about was all of the wonderful outcomes and activities that had happened as a result of this investment in this garden. So through whānau coming together to develop the garden, this sparked more kōrero, more ideas around how they could actually rejuvenate their papakainga. So what they decided was they would hold a touch tournament. So they had 400 Māori whānau turn up to this papakainga, had a day of touch rugby, of bands, of kai, and for the first time in years, this papakainga was alive and vibrant. So when we relayed this back to the funder and spoke about, wow, all these amazing things happened, this amazing touch rugby tournament, whānau were galvanised, and whānau were just so excited by the possibilities about what might happen next. The funder responded that they actually funded the garden, and that's what they were interested in. So, you know, as evaluators, it is our job and our responsibility to articulate what is important to whānau, to look at the whole, to shift and support funders to move from an output focus to an outcomes focus. So that's going to be part of our journey as evaluators, to work with that particular funder to look at how you capture all of the other rich outcomes that have happened as a result of the investment, which may not have been what the original intent has been, but so much more has happened. So that's part of our responsibility as evaluators, to work alongside the funder to I guess, to build their understanding. The second example I want to speak about is the importance of working with a key connector. So ko wai kai te hono hono. In an evaluation I'm working on at the moment, we have purposefully brought on a queer into our team who has connects into the regions that we're working in. Now this queer is so well known and so well connected. She brings all of that, as well as her wisdom and her mātauranga, with us when we go out to speak with whānau. And I cannot emphasise how important it is to have that wisdom and knowledge as part of your team. You know, all of our evaluation team, we're all Māori, but what she brings is worth so much to our evaluation team. And I think it's really important to, as evaluators, to communicate the value add that brings to our practice and communicate that to our funders. And thankfully our funders were more than happy for us to do that. But I think we have to be brave and courageous and say, this is just part and part of our practice. this is what we need to do. It keeps us safe. It keeps the whānau we're interviewing safe. And just the element that she brings to that space is really calming, and I think sets a great tone for kōrero and engagement. The third example I want to talk about is he wai. Do I know my marae 101? So this really is about due diligence, about being prepared culturally. And an example I have of this is a couple of weeks ago I had to interview a school principal at a kura kaupapa. So I Googled the kura, Googled the principal, so I could find out, who's the mana whenua, where is this principal from, or what's her whakapapa. On top of that, I also contacted a friend who is a parent at the school, and she told me that the school had recently been through a tragedy with one of the teachers. So had I not called that friend, I would have been none the wiser, bolted on into that kura to do my interview. But knowing that and having done my homework really, I think, set the scene for how I engaged with the principal. So, things were toned down a bit. The mihi was to the principal, but also to their recent loss. And it's just doing these little things can help your practice so much. Talking to people you might know in a community, the Google is fantastic. There's lots of ways that you can find out information and prepare yourself before you go into these spaces. So those really are just three examples that hopefully you might be able to take some learnings from about what this looks like in practice, and how you can take control of your practice and how you can share control and engage in spaces safely, because I'm of a firm mind that if we are to indigenize the evaluation space, that's going to require Māori evaluators working right alongside non-Māori evaluators. So hopefully that's useful. Kia ora.
Well, tēnā koe Chelsea. What a beautiful insight into your experience and also the journey that you've taken as an Indigenous evaluator. I especially love the 5 whys, so kia ora ata whai for developing that, because what a great, easy to understand touch point for anybody wanting to engage effectively with Māori, to have a good quality reference point, to just run through as a filter. What are the 5 things that I might need to consider before engaging effectively with a Māori community? So I really appreciated you sharing that, and also how you applied those understandings in real life situations as an evaluator as well, and the benefits that you've been able to receive as a result. So I've got a couple of questions for you, Charles, to think about and consider. And the first one is, in your view, what do you think are the right skills and attributes needed to engage effectively in Māori research and evaluation?
Well, I think it comes back to knowing who you are and the value base that you have. And I think what we inherently bring to the space as Māori evaluators is our tikanga, which is grounded into our Māori, is about knowing who we are. And the principles of tika, pono and aroha, so working with integrity, working with humility, working not just for ourselves, but genuinely looking at how we might contribute to the betterment of whānau hapu iwi. So I think your tikanga, knowing who you are, tika, pono, aroha.
Oh, kia ora. Now, just before I pose the next question, I just want to put it out there to the webinar whānau, that there's a wonderful opportunity for you to share your questions to us via social media. You can tweet us. You can also, on the left-hand side of your screen, there's a Q&A button that you can press. So if you've got some burning questions on top that we can also pose to Nan and Chelsea, please do so, and we'll pick those up and we will share those on your behalf. So the next question that I have for you, Hoa, is whānau ura. What an interesting kaupapa, and also considering that in the example you shared with us, that a funder was specifically looking at an output, which was a garden, yet you were able to describe the richness of an approach and most importantly the unintended outcome that took place for this whānau from something as simple as creating a garden and how that rippled across the entire whānau. How do you feel Whānau-ā has changed or influenced the research landscape?
Oh, he pātai nui tēnā. I think for myself and my own practice, Whānau-ā has opened the space for whānau to at last have a voice in research and evaluation. The degree to which that is actually happening, I think, varies depending on who you talk to. But for myself, it's created that space where we're talking about whānau, we're talking about what counts for whānau, what are the measures that we use to capture what whānau value, how do we give voice to their aspirations. We're working in a strengths-based aspirational space which sees whānau in a positive way. And I think, you know, often when I'm working with whānau or alongside whānau in evaluation, they know what they want. They know what good looks like for them. They have aspirations. So Whānau-ā has created a space where we can actually capture that and look at ways to be authentic and articulate their voices and translate that back to policy makers. So for me, it's about opening that space, opening that dialogue, and of course I think we can do a much better job, but you know, it's a journey, Whānau-ā, it's certainly not a destination, but the more evaluators we can get out in that space who are culturally equipped, who are mindful of who they are and how they engage with whānau, who are self-aware, all of those things, I think, you know, we will traverse along that Whānau-ā journey and be in the space where whānau are commissioning research, whānau are commissioning evaluation. That's the aspiration. I certainly think I don't think we're there, but we're on the right track.
Oh, kia ora, Chelsea. And in fact, what we're going to come to later, if people hold on to the end of this webinar, we've got a 3-minute video which was filmed at the Te Angamoa seminar some years ago, which is tips for whānau-centred research. And we'll hear from some really great Whānau-ā voices there. Now, thank you for your whakaaro. I'm just going to encourage people, we've got 20 minutes now to chat to Nan and Chelsea and all these rich learnings from their own practice. So hashtag good research or at good research. You can tweet us, you can use your Q&A, send us your questions and we will put them to Nan and Chelsea. But for now, it seems that my role is to ask the dumb questions of the day. So I've got a dumb question for you, Chelsea. I wanted to ask you, hey, where do I start with all of this? Imagine I'm new in a community, I don't know anyone, I want to get it right, and I want to get my first footsteps right in engaging well with a Māori community that I'm going to work with, whether I'm Māori or Pākehā. Where do I start?
Sorry, is this to me, Jen? Okay, I'll jump in here first. I think just start by having conversations. Start with people you do know, and as we all know, in New Zealand there's 2 degrees of separation. In Te Ao Māori there's about 1 if you're lucky. So just start talking with people. Ask for help. Ask the funder. Ask your friends. Ask it, you know, often, you know, local dairy owners, people who work in the shops or the petrol station. These are the people you need to talk to. Just have the conversations and ask, look, this is the kaupapa I'm interested in. Who should I talk to?
I mean, I always think, you know, that little, you know, that little game show thing, you know, find a friend and phone a friend. You know, that's as simple as it starts. If you remember, you know, find a friend and phone a friend. That's the place to start, you know, in terms of taking first steps. I also think there's going back to the 5 whys, I think particularly that first one, for what purpose and who benefits. So why am I on this journey? Is it truly about, is it about me, or is it truly about whānau or community? I don't, doesn't matter what that answer is, it only matters that you acknowledge it and work within that, that context. So, yeah, so definitely, start with the whys, for what purpose and who benefits.
Now, may I follow up with another practical question? Earlier on, you talked about, an awesome thing that you said, which was that, evaluation is an exercise of power. Yeah. And when we're getting that right, we take great care around who we talk to and who's at the table. Now, am I right that that's actually can be trickier than it sounds? How do we get it right? We're going into a community.
I think
people are in the community already. How do we ensure we get it right?
I think it's incredibly tricky, and it's tricky on both sides. So I think on the community side, from my own perspective, and I think it was also from Chelsea, it's not that difficult to actually, when we connect with people and we ask people who should we be talking to, who should we be around the table. So some of that will be dependent on their availability, because often some of our key people are very busy. Not always, some of our humblest people also. So I think there's about identifying, but also just finding a space and time that works. On the other side, you've got a funder who may or may not be open to, to who sits at the table. They may or may not want to pay for it, both in terms of supporting communities to engage, maybe holding a hui, maybe they may not even want to attend themselves. So there's some skill required in crafting an argument which is able to articulate and distill the value and the need for having those people around the table. So why would we have them around the table? Because they help connect us to community, because they they add insight to our understanding, because they can make things go smoothly. I think we have to help build an understanding around, look, this is just not warm fluffies that we do a mihi around the table. The reason that we have people is, yes, there's a cultural expectation around engagement, but actually there is value and value add from having the right people. Helps us get started, start talking. It stops, hopefully, us putting our foot in it, all of those kind of things. So I think the challenge is articulating to the funder both the value for them, but also the implications for the quality of the engagement and respectful and safe engagement.
Thank you, Nan. In a moment, I'm going to put one more question from our audience, so I'll just let you know what this is. Dana, great to hear from you from the TSB Trust, is saying, look, what can the funders do to support the development of Indigenous evaluation capacity in our communities? So there's a nice high-level question for you, and I'm going to leave you to mull on that whilst I take a moment now, and this will take me a moment, to share with our audience some resources. So just one moment.
Chelsea, what should funders do?
Whoa, I was just thinking, whoa, gee.
Yeah, this is an opportunity we can't have.
So here we can see the What Works website, whatworks.org.nz. Fantastic resources for you here to help you in your mahi. I'm scrolling down the home page, and I want to show you this resource here, a page of kaupapa Māori resources, principles of a kaupapa Māori framework to help you with evaluation and also the wider purpose of evidencing the value of the work that you're doing and sharing that more widely with your community. So there's a page of kaupapa Māori resources here. I'll just have a quick click on it. And a big mihi to the team who helped to bring this work together for us. So now, next, I'm going to take you to the community research website. So this is communityresearch.org.nz. And the Code of Practice for Community Research is a seminal document that was produced in 2008 by the very awesome Robin Kamera. And it sets out some of the frameworks for good practice with engaging with communities before day one, before you even begin your research. I'll just show you what's in our contents page. So this is free of charge and you can download it at your desk. Here's some of what we'll find inside. One of the very awesome people who contributed to this research was Nan Wehipeihana, and you can see that we set out some principles and standards for engaging well with community, including the tikanga Māori principles. So I'm just going to take us now back to Nan and Chelsea. How can funders help to get this right within their community?
So I think I said it in my presentation. I think the first thing that we need funders to do is to take a stance. To take a stance and advocate for the meaningful inclusion of Māori in evaluation. And you might use the 5 whys as one way of doing it. And that's taking a stance on whether they're funding evaluation, whether they're supporting others to do evaluation, help in the translation of not only the practice, but what, not just the ethicality, but what engaging with Māori in an appropriate way and having them at the table, what does that give us? What value does it give us? What insights does it add? In what way does it empower us? In what way? So first of all, we, as a funder, we need you to take a stance and to articulate, can I say it almost as a non-negotiable? We'll have a strong stance at the bare minimum for the meaningful inclusion of Māori and the use of frameworks like the Y framework and other ethical frameworks. That will probably be my key thing.
For my part, I think it also it comes back to power, and if we look at funders, how are Māori, how is your commitment to Māori reflected throughout all parts of your organisation, from governance to strategy through to your operations. So it's great to focus on practice, focus on the 5 whys, focus on your own values, but actually, how do you value Māori at a strategic level? Where do Māori sit in relation to the power base of your organisation? Because actually that's where good practice flows from leadership, from good governance, from the values that your organisation has. So if we are to meaningfully disrupt the space, then it is at a governance, leadership, organisational level that it will permeate down to practice. So of course we've provided you with these tangible practical tips, but for meaningful shifts to occur, then leadership, governance, strategy is where things need to shift as well.
Beautiful. Kia ora Chelsea and kia ora Nan for your insights. And one of the things that I reflect on as you're sharing your lived experience is the power of the cup of tea. When you have to have a kōrero over a cup of tea, something as simple as a cup of tea can either be taken as an opportunity or not. And when I think about that, some will be like, hey, I've come here for a kaupapa, not to have a cup of tea. And in actuality, that's an opening for rich discussion and kōrero, which might go around the mulberry bush for a long time, but actually, if you take time, you will get the gems that you're seeking. What are your experiences in that cup of tea space?
You want to go, Charles?
No, you go.
Well, first of all, I think the offering of a cup of tea is an expression of manaakitanga. So first and foremost, we need to honour that. And even if you don't drink tea, just sip it or get hot water. I think, that is it is an expression of welcome and an expression of hospitality. So that for me, I think, is the first thing I would want to do. And the second thing is, I think in terms of the cup of tea is, for some of our people, you can there's direct questions are just fine, and for others, you have to sit with the cup of tea, and they will tell you what they want to tell you, and it'll be a roundabout circular journey, and so you will not only get a kōrero, but you'll get an experience, and in that journey and that experience, learning will emerge. So I think that's the other thing about the cup of tea. In our busyness, in all our structures, we're often focused on, I've got these 5 questions, and I want to do it like this, and I want to do it, but the cup of tea is also, it's the metaphor for space and for time, and being in the place and space of the person that you are having a cup of tea with. Too often, we want to turn up and get the Reader's Digest version of the kōrero, preferably from 9 to 9:15, or whatever the time frame is, and we diminish the mana of both the person and the kōrero. My thoughts on the cup of tea.
Kia ora. Chelsea?
Yeah, I totoko Nan's kōrero, and I think as evaluators, when you're engaging in this space, you must be prepared for all scenarios. Often I've had my 2-hour time frame. 4 hours later, I'm still sitting there eating, having a cup of tea, and this challenges us as practitioners, because we have become colonised in our practice. We do have these time frames that we need to stick to, but when you engage in those spaces, you often have to let it go and just roll with it. And the power of the cup of tea, also the power of the tea towel, to create that space of aroha, of manaaki, and for people to talk in their own way, in their own terms, and as evaluators, that's just what we have to roll with, because that's what power sharing and manaaki is all about.
Oh, kia ora. Kia ora, Jan.
Kia ora koroa. So, in a moment we're going to hand over to Kay Marie, and she's going to give us her closing whakaaro, her closing thoughts. I have a lot of thank yous I want to say. We're getting love bombed by questions, and we certainly can't respond to them all, and we want to close promptly today because we know that time is the most important resource in the community sector. So I think what we might do is we will engage with the process afterwards to see if there are ways that we can answer your questions. You asked one today and we weren't able to come to you. And of course what happens is during the closing moments of the webinar, all the questions start coming in. We'll see if we can come back to you. For now, though, I want to thank you for attending. I'd like to thank Nan and Chelsea, and also a team of people who are supporting this webinar in the background. And we're going to hand over to Kay Marie to give us her whakaaro and her Kay Marie's closing minute on today's webinar.
Well, kia ora tātou, and thank you firstly to the both of you, Korua ngā wahine toa, for your insight, your mātauranga, your knowledge in this space, and just also the simple things. Sometimes we can get too high level, but in actuality it's some very simple practices. The practice of acknowledging power, and that evaluation is a nexus of power. As evaluators, you are communicators and interpreters between those that are researched and those that are in power, but you are also in a powerful position to be a storyteller and a navigator. So that's a stunning insight from you both. You talked about the 5 whys and how you can utilise that to engage effectively with our people. So great framework for us to think about and use. And then you talked about senses. So the sense of whakarongo, the sense of time and place and space, and understanding how that fits as an evaluator. And also to be sensible. That it's important that we are sensible as partners in this research journey, and at all times, if we can use our power to empower those that may not have the ability to speak to power, that is a powerful role that we play. So on behalf of our team, we wish to gracefully thank you for your time. To all of you who are out there very busy in the community, we would like to thank you as well for spending this precious time with us today. And we also, as Jan has alluded to, we've got some fantastic resources for you to refer to, and also we will find a way to answer those burning questions that we were unable to cover off in this particular webinar. Finally, in closing, I just want to let everyone know that we've got some more webinars coming up, so we're looking forward to having you join us. On the 26th of July, at 11 o'clock, we've got complex projects and short stories, so that's going to be a great opportunity for you to get some insight from Moya Sayre-Jones. And also Trevor McGlinchey on the 9th of August is going to be talking about outcomes and how to create outcomes in partnership with community and also to benefit funders and your organisational vision. Nō reire hoa mā, kia koutou te tīma, kia koutou ngā whānau no ngā hauwhā, tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa. Mauri ora.
Mauri ora.